Hi everybody, the next step in this module is going to be to learn how to add annotations to our plots. So sometimes you may want to highlight a particular point on a plot or a particular observation or set of observations, or there's something special about a particular point on the x-axis or the y-axis that you want to highlight, and that's what we're going to focus on. The main thing that we're going to be talking about is the annotations function, which you can add to include an annotation in your ggplot code. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. So we'll call this section annotations. And our first example is going to be based on our scatter plot from last time. So we'll add some text here. Let's add an annotation to our scatter plot. Add a code chunk, and label our code chunk. We're going to overwrite our object from last time. It's going to be the same thing, except we're just going to add back our Viridis color scheme. And make it plasma. And we'll add the theme minimal, because that's nice and clean. Good for example. We need to add our object here because we're saved it as an object. We also know that this is going to throw some warnings, so let's put warning false and message false, and then go ahead and run that. Okay, and that looks pretty good, nice and clean. This is an interesting pattern where we have high levels of female labor force participation for low-income countries and high levels of female labor force participation in high-income countries, but lower levels for middle-income countries. So we could just highlight that with some annotations that would say low-income, wealthy, and middle-income here. So let's go ahead and add something like that. So we can do that with our annotate function, and the first argument in annotate function is the type of annotation that you want to include. In this case, we're going to use text. That's usually what we want to do. And let's say we're going to put a label called wealthy somewhere around here on the x-axis and somewhere around here on the y-axis. So we'll say that the x-axis location should be about 90,000 and the y-axis location should be about 75, right? For $90,000 and 75% essentially. So x equals 90,000, y equals 75, label equals wealthy. Let's say we want another annotation here, and again annotation text, and we want this one to say low income and we want it to be around here. So let's put x at about 1,000, y at about 80, and our label is going to be low income. All right, and then let's put one more down here for middle income countries, and you get the idea. So x is going to be, we can put it at around 10,000, and y we can put at around, let's put it down here so that it doesn't interfere with all the points and stuff in the line. Let's put it about 20. So X equals 10,000, Y equals 20, label equals middle income. Okay, let's save that. Let's run it again and see if that worked. Okay, that looks pretty good. We have low-income countries over here, bunching up over here. A lot of them sub-Saharan African countries, wealthy countries up here, and middle-income countries. A lot of them from Middle East and South Asia, kind of bunching up down here in the lower middle portion of the plot. Okay, so now for our next example, let's add a horizontal intercept line on the y-axis, denoting the importance of some value and then some text describing what that line is for. Okay, so for this we're going to need, so let's just, right, we're doing here, let's add a horizontal intercept to a line chart. All right, and we'll add a code chunk here. And we're going to take our line chart from last time. Add a Viridis theme. And why don't we also add a chart theme? We'll add the minimal theme. That's my favorite. Let's just go run that and make sure it works. Oops, forgot the object. Try it again. Okay, and now let's go ahead and add an annotation to this, and let's imagine that we want to, see how countries are converging or diverging towards a certain point on the y-axis. And let's say hypothetically we're interested in how they're diverging or converging from the 1990 value of female labor force participation in terms of the global average. Okay, and let's say we look that up and we see that the global average for 1990 is 50.7%. Female labor force participation rate is 50.7% in 1990, and we want to plot that as a line, a horizontal line here on the y-axis. And so basically the way that we would add that horizontal intercept is by adding a new geom underscore h line. And so let's go ahead and do that. And the first argument for geom underscore h line is where on the y-intercept you want it to go. So y-intercept equals, and we said it was 50.7. Okay, and then we can add some other arguments to alter the appearance of the line, right? To make the line a different color, a different type, etc., etc. So let's add line type equals dashed, color equals red, and then let's also change the size. We'll make it bigger, size equals 1. All right, and then to that we can add an annotation. This is going to be text to say what the line is about. So let's put it at about 1995, and we're going to put on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we're going to put it at about 55, and then our label here is going to be global average 1990. Oh, looks like I deleted the bottom part of the code chunk here somehow, and I didn't put a label, so let's go ahead and label that real quick. And it didn't like that. Apparently I have misspelled label here, so we can fix that, and let's try it one more time. There we go. We have our horizontal intercept line, and we can see how regions are trending either towards it or away from it. Okay, so for our last example here, we're going to do the same thing essentially, except we're going to have a vertical reference line instead of a horizontal reference line. So let's go ahead and do that. Write some text first. Add vertical reference line. We'll add a code chunk here, and we'll label it V-line annotation. Oops. And okay, so we can just use the same object. We have the chart object here, FLFP underscore line, so we can just use that from the last example, and then we can add a different annotation this time, or a different geom first of all. So we're going to use geom v-line, and now we have to tell it where on the x-axis we want that vertical line. And so let's say, for example, we want to highlight the pandemic 2020 because we think that that was a year that female labor force participation would have dropped dramatically, and in fact it did. So we want to highlight the pandemic, so we're going to put x-intercept equals, you guessed it, 2020. And then we can again specify our line type. Let's have dashed because that stands out, and then we'll adjust the size, but we'll leave it black this time. All right, and then we're going to annotate that, and we want the annotation, let's say, you know, to be near this pandemic vertical intercept line. We want it to be somewhere close to that. So let's say around 2017 on the x-axis, and let's put it about 35% for on the y-axis, or at the 35% mark on the y-axis. So we can, so we're going to write annotate text. The location is going to be x equals 2017, and the y is going to be 35. And then we can just put a simple label there like pandemic. All right, and I think that should go. Let's try it. So there we go. We have our vertical intercept line and our annotation. And so now you should have a pretty good sense of how to do annotations and intercept lines in your charts. In the next lesson, we're going to learn how to make our charts interactive. See you there.